Corla and Tánaiste. I want to raise with you the incredibly volatile and concerning situation in the Middle East. Just as we were coming into the chamber, we hear reports that Israeli troops are, as we speak, firing on 3 UNIFIL positions in Lebanon. We understand one of those, from the reports, that one of those is the base at Nakura, that there are injured UN peacekeepers, that UNIFIL is to issue a statement very soon. No Irish peacekeepers affected, as far as we know, but clearly our thoughts, all of us must send thoughts with all of those troops now under fire, UN peacekeepers fulfilling a really important and valuable mission. And our thoughts, of course, with our own troops, our own peacekeepers in southern Lebanon, with their families who we all know are so desperately worried as matters are developing. And we hope that everyone will be safe as far as possible. But it clearly seems that the UN is under attack from Israel. Tánaiste, I've already thanked you, and I want to put on record my thanks to you for giving a briefing to myself, to other opposition party leaders on the situation facing Irish peacekeepers in Lebanon on Tuesday. And since that briefing, which I think we all found very, very useful and constructive, we were relieved to see that the most immediate danger for our own troops in their own positions had receded. As I say, this news is just breaking of Israeli attacks on the UN today. I want to put on the record my deep appreciation, and that of the Labour Party, for the invaluable work being done by our peacekeepers in Lebanon. We know how dangerous that work is, and today's developments illustrate that so starkly. I know that you will continue to keep us, but much more importantly, the families of our troops, updated on developments as they unfold. But Tánaiste, this is yet another example of Israel's continuing spreading of mayhem, of war, of destruction, of civilian deaths and casualties across the region. In Gaza, where we've seen genocidal actions by Israel lead to over 40,000 deaths, but also now in Lebanon, and indeed reports from Syria too. Today in Gaza, 28 people killed and 54 injured in an airstrike on Rafida school in Gaza, where people were sheltering from the brutal bombardment. It's outrageous that Israel continues to act with apparent impunity, targeting civilians. Now it seems firing on peacekeepers. We know there's already been unprecedented levels of deaths of UN aid workers, of children, of journalists under fire from Israel. The Taoiseach is in Washington this week. He has said that President Biden had a conversation of substance with Netanyahu, and yet Israel continues this outrageous and illegal action. What can we in Ireland do? Well, Tánaiste, let's go further than we've already done. And we've welcomed the recognition of the State of Palestine. We've welcomed your efforts at EU level. But we have legal opinions which state that the Occupied Territories Bill can be passed into law here in Ireland to create a meaningful set of sanctions against a state that is a terror state now, it seems, that is acting with disregard for the rules of international law, for the rules of international law of war, for the rules around the protection of our peacekeepers. It's unacceptable, Tánaiste. I know you share that view. I know all of us in this House share that view, as our troops are facing this outrageous danger. So what are we doing about it? Can you say that we will act to pass the Occupied Territories Bill? You have all of our support in doing so, and indeed your party and the Green Party up to 2020 wanted to see that bill passed.
First of all, I want to thank the Deputy sincerely for raising this issue and for your comments. I don't have an update in respect of that report, which, as I was arriving into the chamber, in respect of reports of firing on UN positions or UNIFIL positions, but I do expect to get a comprehensive report on that, which I will share with people generally. And it illustrates the very high-risk environment and the dangerous environment that peacekeepers are now operating within, and the need for an immediate ceasefire in Lebanon between Hezbollah and the IDF and Israel. And that has to happen immediately. Israel is not listening to its allies even, in terms of progressing its agenda, in terms of, it seems to be all-out war in the region, in respect of, we've seen what's happened in Gaza, where 70% of all buildings have been levelled, 40,000 people killed, and indeed the population now experiencing really forms of famine, lack of access to proper nutrition. Children have had no access to schools for 12 months from the beginning of this war with the Hamas attack on October the 7th, which in itself was a heinous crime as well. But it is unacceptable. And I said this earlier in the House, the nature of destructive warfare today, where an entire community and from education to health gets destroyed in the name of attacking various opponent military targets, is simply a clear breach of international humanitarian law, and there's no doubt about that. And Ireland has pursued through the international courts. We've supported the international courts. We've made submissions to the international courts, and I think the advisory opinion is important, and I think it's important in the context of the Occupied Territories Bill, and we are awaiting further advices from the Attorney General, which I expect we'll get shortly, in respect of both the bill itself, but also the impact of the ICJ, because the ICJ places obligations on states in respect of the occupation, and that nothing can be done that would in any way aid or support the Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories. And I think that creates, in my view, a new context in which we must look at this. And we've already tabled this at the European Union Foreign Affairs Council meeting, the informal one held recently, where Josep Borrell has said he's the high-level representative of that he has sought legal opinion as to the implications for the European Union in respect of the ICJ advisory opinion, which Ireland supported, as you know, through resolutions, and we co-sponsored a resolution recently to have a follow-through at UN level in terms of the implementation of that advisory opinion.
Deputy Bacik.
Thank you, Tánaiste. As you say, clearly the situation is unfolding. UNIFIL are due to give a statement shortly, but the reports are, of course, extremely concerning. And I do agree, of course, what we need to see is an immediate ceasefire. It's also true, as you say, that Israel is not listening to allies. They're not listening to anyone. That's the point. They are continuing to act because they believe they can do so with impunity. Netanyahu's government has lost all sense of moral compass, all sense of international law compliance. So as a small state here in Ireland, where our people share such outrage at Israel's actions, I think sometimes people can feel helpless. What can we do? And certainly we have done some important things. Recognition of the State of Palestine was very important. But we can and should and must go further. And I take some encouragement from your response to me there, Tánaiste. As you say, the ICJ opinion does change the situation. It does create a different, changed legal context in which it becomes even more imperative that we pass meaningful trade sanctions on Israel here from Ireland. The EU is Israel's biggest trade partner. This is how we can have an impact on Israeli policy, is through trade. And what I want to hear, Tánaiste, is can you assure us that you're actively looking for ways to pass the bill rather than reasons not to?
Right,
Let's hope that AG's
up,
opinion will give us a way forward.
Tánaiste.
I can assure you that anything that will assist in if you like, pushing back against the occupation of Palestinian territory, and indeed what's happening at the moment, a significant land grab in the north of the West Bank, we will be supportive. In terms of the ICJ opinion, I already took action in respect of instructing my department and the military leadership not to procure from Israel any defensive equipment or drones or whatever. I had read somewhere that that was about to happen, much to my surprise. But I think the ICJ, I would regard any engagement with the defence industry in Israel would be tantamount to supporting the occupation. And so I took that decision based on the ICJ advisory opinion. And I think it's an opinion that people should read. I know you have, because it's your expertise, to be fair. But I think it has very significant implications for all of the European member states. They can't really, I don't think Europe can ignore the implications of the ICJ advisory opinion any further.
Thank you very much. We move now